you ever speak to me like that again, better be wearing a cup.
Baby steps.
One break, I'm in
Okay, friends, let's everybody take your positions, please. Here we go. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, rolling. Dave!
And
Dave! Unchained!
welcome to Dave and Dave Unchained, a Van Halen podcast. I'm Dave.
And I am Dave.
And we are at episode 43. As my mother says, free to be you and me. That's what she calls my wife, Dave. My wife is a teacher, and, you know, she's I guess you consider a liberal person, but my mom thinks she's a hippie. And you know my wife, she's not a hippie. She doesn't have any tattoos, she doesn't drink, she doesn't do any drugs, but she likes, like, hippie style, like in terms of clothing and stuff. So my mom thinks like she's straight out of Woodstock. And she's always, so she always says to me, Dave, she's always like, oh yeah, I know you and your wife, you're always free to be you and me over there.
You know what that is?
What's that?
That's the spirit of your late father taking over your mother, is what that is.
Perhaps it is.
I feel the presence of Gaston in the room.
That's
Dave.
right. There's a disturbance in the force.
Oh, we're going to hell.
That's
Okay,
right.
on with the show.
That's right. That's right. Well, we have a boatload of news. We have a boatload of letters. We got all kinds of stuff, so let's get straight to Van Halen news.
Van Halen.
News! And wow, it's incredible for a band that does nothing. We got a lot to talk about. And I actually want to start with something interesting. It's a little different, and it's not directly from a band member, but it's actually from our friend Eddie Trunk. Well, first of all, he has a radio show called Trunk Nation on Volume channel, and that is on Sirius XM. That's a daily show. I listen to it all the time. Eddie does a fantastic job. He records from it's 2 to 4 in the afternoon. And it is a really enjoyable show on Sirius XM. And, you know, that's a kind of a rock talk show. You know, he also does his All Access show and his podcast, and he does another show on Sirius XM. So all kinds of stuff. But this really blew my mind. Okay. So Eddie was reporting on this new box set from Woodstock. Okay, this upcoming, we all know it's the 50th anniversary of Woodstock coming up this summer, and they are releasing, Dave, a sick box set from Woodstock, like all-encompassing every little thing that everybody's been waiting for years, even like the CCR set and all that stuff. It's all coming out. It's all coming out.
That's being released on Rhino, right?
Yep.
It's like a 10 or 20 vinyl set in like this gorgeous box or something like that, right?
It's unbelievable. Now, the reason why I'm bringing up in Van Halen news is some really serious Van Halen news came out of this thing. So Eddie's working on doing some report. I think it might have been, I don't know if it was for his Access TV show or some sort of special he's doing on this Woodstock box set. There's these two guys, I don't know their full names, but it's Brian and Andy, and they are archivalists. They specially go into artists' archives and restore and remaster some of their old tapes and stuff. So these guys are the perfect guys that, you know, we would love Van Halen to work with. Well, after Eddie did his work for the day, Brian took Eddie into the studio and he said, Eddie, come here, I want to show you something. He goes back and he shows Eddie a project he worked on 12 years ago, which is 2007. What happened in 2007? Van Halen reunited. And Warner Brothers hired this guy, Brian, and his friend Andy, okay, his partner, I should say, to work on Van Halen archives, okay? This guy sat down, and Eddie recounted this on his show, and it was mind-blowing to hear this. So Eddie was talking about this elusive Van Halen box set that they worked on, which was apparently 30 tracks, okay? And he said, to quote Eddie, it was absolutely incredible. And he said this is not stuff that has been released before. He said this is Eddie and Dave and Alex and Michael pre the first album demos from Ted Templeman, okay? He said this stuff is recorded by Ted Templeman to prep for the first record, and the stuff's amazing. He says it's songs with different lyrics, unreleased songs, Eruption without the echo on it, room mics with the band playing live, Mean Street as a different song. He said absolutely crazy shit. He heard it right with his own ears. They said there's elements of Eddie playing bass. They have them joking around in the studio, them doing an early version of Happy Trails. We all know they didn't do Happy Trails until 82, but they have done it ahead of time. He said it's like a snapshot of Van Halen in the studio in 1977. The guy Brian says, this is not the stuff that's making the rounds out there in the bootleg land. This is completely restored, unreleased material, and the sound quality is astounding.
So it's not the Warner Brothers demos?
No, it's not. Because that was pre-Ted Templeman. You know what I mean? That's before Ted got in the picture. He said it was commissioned by Warner Brothers 30 years ago, and they went into the archives to see what was there. They said they found it, they mixed it, and they were going to release it as some sort of, like, rarities release. Eddie said it sounds better than most finished records. That's how good it was. So Eddie asked him what happened. The answer is nothing. They couldn't get the approvals from the band to put it out. The whole project was scrapped forever, and it sits unheard and unreleased. And Eddie said it was absolutely maddening to hear this, knowing what the fans have been craving all these years. And now, here's the sad part, if that wasn't sad enough. So Eddie's been spending a lot of time on the West Coast. And, you know, he's an industry guy. He's been in the industry for over 30 years. He knows all the rock stars. He talks to all the people behind the scenes. And Eddie has been getting, on his show, an inordinate amount of Van Halen calls. So Eddie does a lot of call-in parts of his show. He calls Free For All Friday, where everybody just calls in with questions. People email him questions. Van Halen is a non-stop subject on the show. He's amazed by it because, you know, obviously Van Halen's not active, they're not touring, they're not releasing albums, and it's just, he said, like, the whole interest in VH has been building, and this is a quote from Eddie. Many have said to me, we'd be surprised if you ever see Van Halen play again. This is the common theme and sentiment from people in the business, and I hope it is wrong. So, I don't know what to make of that. I mean, the thing about the archives just goes to prove they exist. Now, that's one album. Can you imagine? They probably have them for every album. What do you make of that, Dave?
Wow. I wish I could say I was surprised at the total dysfunction that they can't even get a rarities released. Because it's 30 tracks. That's not even a box set. That's like a double CD.
Yeah, like a double CD. Time, right? Yeah, whatever.
But still, really, like, it's done. It's done and ready to go.
It's done and ready to go.
And you guys can't figure it out.
It's amazing.
And Eddie Truck must have been drooling.
The words he described, he says, it was maddening. He said, because not only was the stuff quality, in terms of sound quality, like he said, the sound was so good. He said it was all this rare stuff. And you have to realize, Eddie talks to these fans every day. He says it's heartbreaking. Like, you know, he's been saying, like, he hasn't released hardly anything in years.
It's just so frustrating that it's there ready to go.
Yeah.
On the shelf.
Oh, yeah.
At any time. And they just cannot be bothered. You know, like you're always talking about an archivist or an archivalist. Yeah. You know, the words you make up every other podcast.
Exactly right.
So, but still, whatever you want to call it, like these guys did it.
Yep, exactly.
And they still couldn't get it out the door.
And look, there's people that will do the art for them and get out. All they have to do is call some of the old get the photography all together. I mean, it's all there.
You know what?
You can do a series.
You know what? It just gets me upset. Let's move on to the next topic.
No, you're right. You're right. But now, what did you make of that comment, though, that he's been hearing? The sentiment through the industry is, I'd be surprised if you ever heard from Van Halen again.
Well, you know, there's a lot of rumblings about the health of a band member, of Ed,
right,
of maybe Al,
who knows,
maybe Dave, and I think the fact that there's been so much rumblings in the past 2 years that these guys were going to tour, and now they're not touring,
right,
especially the most recent year, it's kind of like poop or get off the pot,
right,
and unfortunately it looks like they're getting off the pot.
Now,
Dave says, you know, he's going to talk to the brothers.
Yeah.
I hope it's not just to say hello.
Well, you know, I tell you, I really think that whole talk to the brothers routine is Dave is chomping at the bit. And we're going to get to that a little later in the news. But this guy is just aching to do something. I mean, he's been popping up on podcasts. He's been doing UFC stuff. I mean, he's bursting into bachelor parties he's not invited to. I mean, this guy wants to do something.
Yeah, at the risk of getting ahead of ourselves, I'll just say, I really think he's going to the top of Howdy Doody Mountain.
Yeah.
And he's like, look, we need to poop or get off the pot.
Yeah.
And if you're going to be mad at me, that's fine, because if we're not going to do anything ever again,
right,
and you're going to be mad at me for doing my own thing, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
Because we're never going to do anything again.
Well, and
I'm living my life. I'm not waiting for you guys.
Well, listen, Dave, I mean, you know, you and I are turning 50 in February. He's turning 65 on his next birthday, which is in a few months. And, you know, you take stock of shit. I mean, you know, he's in good health. He's in great shape. And, you know, but how long? I mean, like,
I hear you.
I mean, like, you know, if he's going to do something, one thing Dave can't buy is time. He can't buy it. And it's you're never going to get it back. So, you know, he wants to do what he wants to do. And I personally think that his current contract is holding him back from doing what he wants to do. And I really don't think Dave wants to go around saying Van Halen's over either.
Right. I think he wants to honor whatever agreement he has so he can go back in the band. But I think he's sitting there going, I'm going to talk to these guys. And if they're like, look, we can't give you any promises, then I think Dave's going to be like, you know what? I'm out. I'm doing my thing. Call me when you're ready. I'll be the first one to sign on the dotted line.
Right.
But you can't keep jerking me around like this.
Right, yeah. And I really...
But who knows? This is all conjecture.
Yeah, no, of course. It's all speculation. However, I think, really, the most telling thing is the Wolfie album not being released. I think that says everything. Because that whole project is shelved for one very large reason. What could it be? I mean, why would you hold the kid back from releasing an album he's been working on for years?
I know. It's also circumstantial. The tour isn't happening.
Yeah,
the Wolf album isn't coming out.
Right.
The Sam tour isn't touring in July. Dave is here, there, and everywhere doing press and plugging his skin cream and, you know, doing his podcast.
Right.
So you got to be like a detective to figure out what's not going on.
I know. Now, here's
I don't know.
Yeah, here's the next piece, which also involves Eddie Trunk. Okay, so Eddie Trunk had John 5 on, and we all know that John 5, on like some other podcast, leaked a clip of the David Lee Roth California Sessions album that also is sitting on the shelf. Now, this is hysterical. So John 5 comes on. He's friends with Eddie. They're good friends. And this clip was played again with an extension. So he probably played like a 49-second clip this time, which gave you a little more of a taste, and the clip's right here.
After we cried, we threw the television off that balcony. That memory means so much to me. No doubt in me, I do believe that no one listens to both sides except the neighbors. Fine art of compromise. Happy losing half of mine, 'cause she'll lose her half later. First taste of being victim.